8 influential generals who changed history. The crash of swords, the cries of the wounded, the birth of heroes, warfare and violence have been part of humanity for thousands of years. Yet a rare few leaders have risen from the fray as masters of combat, steering history's flow through strength of arms and unmatched cunning. Their names ring out through the ages, the Alexanders, Caesars, and Napoleons. Join me today as we march through time, examining 8 of the most influential generals who left indelible impacts on the ancient world and modern battlefields alike. Men whose strategic brilliance and tactical mastery made them peerless captains of war in any age. Julius Caesar. The very name Caesar still evokes power centuries later, but before crowning himself dictator over the Roman Republic, Julius Caesar carved a bloody path to greatness on battlefields from Gaul to Egypt. This cunning political operator and military prodigy demonstrated both strategic shrewdness and personal bravery, often leading his men from the front in the thick of combat. During his conquest of Gaul, Caesar outmaneuvered fierce tribal rivals through expert divide-and-conquer tactics. His commentary chronicling these campaigns became a classic for budding military leaders. Caesar also stunned the ancient world by leading the first Roman invasion of Britain in 55 BC. Crossing the English Channel with legions, cavalry, and war elephants, he forced the Britons' capitulation after winning several engagements. After adding new provinces and wealth through victory abroad, Caesar returned to Rome, where political maneuvering eventually led the Senate to declare him Dictator Perpetuo, or Dictator for life. On the Ides of March in 44 BC, he was assassinated by senators who feared his growing power. But the immense new lands acquired under Caesar's generalship had already doubled the territory controlled by Rome. His conquest built a vast empire and changed Rome's course forever, setting the stage for Augustus and the future Caesars who would rule the Mediterranean. Khalid ibn al-Walid. In early Islamic history, few names rung as loudly as Khalid ibn al-Walid al-Makhzumi. Khalid stands as one of the greatest generals of the Rashidun Caliphate, which exploded out of Arabia after the death of Muhammad. As the Prophet's trusted companion, Khalid utilized brilliant generalship to secure astonishing victories for the young Islamic Empire against the Byzantine and Sassanid Persian empires. His battle record was nothing short of phenomenal. Known as the Sword of Allah, Khalid commanded Muslim armies in over 100 conflicts against Arab polytheists and powerful imperial neighbors alike without suffering a single defeat. This remarkable undefeated streak has elevated him into the pantheon of history's most effective military leaders. Khalid's reputation for tactical prowess and strategic judgment earned him a position as one of Muhammad's chief advisors on military affairs. At the seminal Battle of Mu'tah in 629 CE, it was Khalid's skillful maneuvering and the inspiration of his troops that allowed 8,000 Muslim fighters to withstand an onslaught by a 200,000 strong Byzantine force without breaking. Following Muhammad's death, Khalid went on to secure key victories for the Rashidun Caliphate against Persian forces at Firaz and Walaja, which helped secure Iraq. Later, his mobile Arab warriors decisively defeated the Byzantines once more at the Yarmouk River. Khalid's genius for maneuver warfare and ability to motivate Bedouin fighters fundamentally transformed the practice of war in the Middle East. His stunning string of successes paved the way for Islamic expansion across North Africa and into Spain. Subutai. While Genghis Khan forged the sprawling Mongol Empire through bloody conquest across Asia, the true sharp point of his savage military instrument was Subutai, the brilliant strategist who led Mongol armies on daring invasions deep into Eastern Europe and the Middle East. As Genghis Khan's primary military advisor, Subutai organized the feared yet disunited Mongol tribes into a unified mobile fighting force by instituting training, discipline, and unit organization. He pioneered maneuver, ambush, and feigned retreat to overwhelm opponents, boasting numerical superiority but lacking strategic direction. Subutai was instrumental in securing major victories at the battles of the Kala River, Mohi, and Liegnitz, which crushed Russian, Hungarian, and Polish armies. He reportedly won 65 pitched battles while fighting in 17 different campaigns across his long career, more than any known commander in history. The mere approach of his tumens, or divisions, struck primal fear into the hearts of those in their path. But Subutai's true genius lay not just in tactics but in strategy. His ability to coordinate armies across vast distances marked a quantum leap in the evolution of modern logistical warfare. From China to Central Europe, Subutai mapped uncharted regions, gathered intelligence, and operated across a broader battlefield than any previous general to keep enemies completely off balance. The mobility and deception tactics he perfected with the Mongol horse archers opened the gates of Europe to their conquest. While the Mongols ultimately withdrew, their rapid strikes left behind smoldering ruins that took decades to recover from. Of all the Khan's fearsome warriors, Subutai was the most devastating gale in the Mongol storm that briefly but violently remade the world map. Napoleon Bonaparte. Perhaps no general has replicated the sheer scale of battlefield dominance enjoyed by Napoleon Bonaparte at his peak. During the French Revolutionary Wars, Napoleon rose swiftly by using massed artillery and superior maneuverability to decimate enemies still deployed in rigid, linear formations. As emperor, he led the Grand Armée to crush every alliance of major European powers that dared oppose him. Napoleon pioneered corps organization by dividing his forces into self-contained, rapidly moving units that could concentrate forces against the enemy's weak points. His mastery of logistics allowed his armies to march further and faster than their opponents to gain the initiative. Once in contact, Napoleon maneuvered circles around foes dependent on the outdated doctrines of limited war. Against the clueless Austrian general Mack Napoleon used a series of dazzling flank marches to encircle Mack's entire army and force its surrender without fighting a major battle. At Austerlitz, his feigned weakness in the center tempted Russian and Austrian forces to mass against his flanks, only to be smashed by waiting French corps. Napoleon similarly dismantled the vaunted Prussian army at Jena-Auerstadt using rapid concentration of force and audacious pursuit. Napoleon's stunning operational successes made Napoleonic warfare focused on speed, deception, and mobility the dominant paradigm until technology changes late in the 19th century brought about modern defensive firepower. By keeping Europe's royal houses off balance for over a decade, Napoleon firmly demonstrated the decisive impact possible through sheer military genius applied on the battlefield. Hannibal Barca. Few generals in history have replicated the boldness and genius of Hannibal Barca. During the Second Punic War, he led his Carthaginian army on a grueling march, including war elephants, over nearly 1,000 miles across the Alps to invade Italy by surprise. Once in Italy, Hannibal proceeded to inflict crushing defeats on the Roman Republic at Trebia, Trasimene, and Cannae. At Cannae in 216 BC, Hannibal brilliantly used his smaller army's advantages in cavalry and organization to encircle and destroy an 86,000-strong Roman force in a single day. By feigning weakness in the center to draw in and pin the dense Roman infantry phalanx, then enveloping them with fast-moving cavalry from the flanks, Hannibal produced what many consider the greatest tactical masterstroke in ancient warfare. Despite his succession of smashing victories on Italian soil, Hannibal faced a formidable foe in Rome's manpower reserves and navy, which cut him off from reinforcements. After 15 long years campaigning in Italy with dwindling resources and no external support, Hannibal was finally recalled to defend Carthage itself against invasion by Scipio Africanus, who defeated him at Zama in 202 BC. Although ultimately on the losing side against Rome, Hannibal's generalship, boldness, and mastery of tactics continued to be studied over 2,000 years later. His ability to tactically destroy the previously invincible Roman legions through creative maneuvers makes Hannibal Barca one of history's most admired commanders. Von Neuensapp. Against the well-equipped armies of the imperial powers, General von Neuensapp led Vietnamese guerrilla fighters to achieve hard-fought independence. First, Zapp organized resistance against Japanese occupation during World War II. After ousting the French-controlled colonial regime from northern Vietnam, he brilliantly adapted Marxism-Leninism to wage a revolutionary people's war. At the Battle of Dien Bien Phu in 1954, Zapp drew the overconfident French commanders into committing their elite paratrooper forces to defend an isolated base. He then besieged them with well-entrenched infantry and heavy artillery dragged through the jungle and mountains. Zapp's victory broke French resolve, ending their rule in Indochina. Against the United States, Zapp later coordinated the Tet offensive attacks that shocked America before its ultimate withdrawal from Vietnam. Nathan Bedford Forrest. A cavalry genius praised by Union and Confederate leaders alike, Nathan Bedford Forrest rose from rural poverty to become one of the Civil War's most remarkable generals. Leading innovative mounted forces, he played a central role in securing key Confederate victories in the West. Forrest pioneered the use of maneuver, deception, and assault tactics for cavalry rather than just reconnaissance, proving devastatingly effective. At battles like Bryce's Crossroads and 2nd Murfreesboro, Forrest disrupted Union supply lines and destroyed larger forces with aggressive flanking attacks. He was described as the most remarkable man our Civil War produced on either side by Union General William T. Sherman, who found his mobility and daring frightening. Forrest's slave trading background marred his legacy, but the brilliance of his cavalry tactics made him the most formidable battlefield opponent to Union forces in the Western theater. Arthur Wellesley. Before his famous triumph over Napoleon at Waterloo, Arthur Wellesley, or the 1st Duke of Wellington, honed his command abilities fighting French forces during the Peninsular War. In India, Wellesley defeated Tipu Sultan to gain huge territorial gains for the British Empire, but his skills were tested like never before in Spain and Portugal. There, he led British and Portuguese troops in using lines of fortified bases to contain France's vaunted infantry and maneuver around their exposed flanks. At Salamanca in 1812, Wellesley inflicted a crushing defeat on the French, which finally allowed Allied forces to go on the offensive. He then led a decisive victory at Vittoria that drove the French back over the Pyrenees. Wellesley's mastery of terrain, supply, and mobile tactics make him one of history's great captains. By defeating Napoleon's marshals, he paved the way for a final showdown with the French Emperor himself. Conclusion. Brilliant strategy, organizational dynamism, and sheer battlefield audacity made these generals stand out as transformers of warfare in their respective eras. But their lasting influence flows not just from military success, but also from how their victories shaped the rise and fall of empires, beliefs, and borders we see reflected in our world today. Though war's devastation is terrible, we can still stand in awe of these rare strategic minds who proved decisive in determining civilization's course through history's pivotal conflicts.